I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
Razaban IFL TV proudly sponsored by Everlast. With me, promoter Ben Shalom. Ben, the moment you've walked in here, you haven't taken a smile off your face.
Obviously, delighted to sign Joshua Buatsi just because of how talented he is and how many promoters were after him. Offers from the US, the UK, and yeah, to be honest, quite humbled. I appreciate, and everyone will always say, he wants to be on Sky Sports and this and that, and we know that, and we know that's our biggest point. But he also had to trust to move over, and Josh is very, very careful, and he didn't want to be the first one. But he's watched Tasha Jonas take a leap of faith and seen what happened. Savannah Marshall, Riatpur, Chris Smith, and others, and Dan Aziz in his development, and to have his confidence in the most important time of his career, it's humbling, if I'm honest. But obviously, really just delighted to have a world-class athlete in the most important part of their career. It's really happy.
Outside of the kind of Sky engine, what kind of did you promise him and offer him? Obviously, when you took on Lawrence Okoli, you had Riakpo, you've already got Willem Smith. So what did you kind of promise him? What urged him to come towards you and not stay with Matchman and Frank Warren?
Look, I think Dan Aziz has proven, yes, at a lower level, that if you want to take the title fights, there's no way you can be stopped. It's mandatories, it's development, and it's taking the fights. And he's number one in the WBA. He was in the IBF, and we'll see what happens with that. He's very well ranked in all the governing bodies, WBC. He's going to get his world title chance almost when he wants it now. And, he wanted those big fights, and he wants to make a statement with those big fights. And I think, speaking to Josh, that's the biggest thing for him. He knows he's going to fight for a world title. He knows he's got the big fights against Anthony Yard and other domestic fights and other, world level fights to come. He wants to have a legacy. He wants to fight regularly. He's fighting. We're going to get him out in 6 weeks and just get this train going. And I think he trusted the situation, which I'm obviously delighted with, because he's such a talented guy and his career is so important to him. Humbled and happy and delighted for him, because I think he feels like the shackles are off a little bit. There's so much, where a fighter has to sit there and be silent and have all this speculation and doesn't feel happy but doesn't want to say anything. And I'm just delighted for him the shackles are off, because he wants to be in front of camera. He wants to be a star. He wants to deliver his message. He wants to have those nights that we'll all remember in a few years' time. And for him, I can see the pressure and the stress, perhaps, of maybe a year or 2 or 3 years. He feels like he's making up for last time. He was 30 years old yesterday. This is serious now. And as I say, make no mistake, this guy wants the biggest fights, and he's made sure of that. I'm just happy to be on that journey with him, as everyone is at Boxer. And Sky Sports delighted to have him, and as I say, we get to have Sky for them. They felt like they never got it right with Josh, and there was a big Anthony Joshua era and other things, and naturally he played second fiddle to that, and really, really happy.
One of the interesting things he said up there was, and I'm paraphrasing, that my fans will be able to see me on basically a proper TV network.
Yeah, I mean, that's his thing. Ultimately, we know he wants to be seen. Like, it's all right saying take this really, really tough fight, but the blood, sweat and tears and risks that go into that deserve rewards. And I think that's what he's saying is, he'll take any fight. He'll take any fight. But he wants people to remember those nights, not just the boxing fans, the casual fans. He wants to be the fighter in a year's time that people will stop going out to watch his fights. Carl Froch wasn't on Sky Sports, was very, very elite. No one knew who he was. Came on here, had a couple of fights, and then suddenly was able to achieve what he achieved and become the star he is. There's a lot of world champions that no one actually know. and I know that that's very important to him. And but that's one for him. We're happy that yes, he's got the broadcaster he wanted, but he also now trusts the promotional outfit that's going to take care of his career.
Eddie Hearn was very vocal that we've offered him £1 million or dollars, I'm not sure on the currency, to fight Dimitri Bivol, and he turned it down. Frank Warren did an interview yesterday, said we offered him the Anthony Yard fight. I spoke to his trainer Virgil Hunter on Saturday, who said that I want him to have 2 more fights before he challenges someone like Dimitri Bivol. So question 1, who's he going to fight in May, and then how soon are you going to get him out again? Because one of the other issues that he's had is being inactive over the last kind of couple of years as well.
Inactivity can kill fighters at that level, but look, I think, you know, when we talk about, and I'm not going to get involved in a back and forth, but when you say, oh, he's been offered Bivol, finish the sentence. What he's been offered Bivol, but he has to extend for a couple of years, or he's been offered Bivol, but they're not. Believe me, if he could fight Bivol and not have to extend and this and that, I know he would take it, because he's saying to me, Ben, I want to fight in 6 weeks, get me out, and then if Bivol's available, let's do it. Sometimes I feel sorry for fighters, because and we saw it with Lawrence Okoli, and the amount of abuse and things that he was getting whilst he couldn't talk was difficult for him as well. And look, I would never ever have a go at a fighter or talk badly about a fighter, especially someone as respectful as Joshua Buatsi. He's a born killer. He wants the big fights, and he's made that clear in his contract with us. So 6 weeks he'll be out, and then he's into the biggest fights possible. That Anthony Yard fight will happen 100%, and it will happen at the right time for Joshua Buatsi, and it's an absolute monster. But ultimately, right now, his focus is world titles, and I know that.
Ben, obviously, I know you're kind of down to earth. You don't like getting into this promoter beef, and I don't mean to press you on this, but when you're taking someone like Buatsi, who's an asset, who's a name, who's a product from another major promoter and another major network, and bring him on, that must be quite satisfying.
It's satisfying because of who we've got. I genuinely believe this is a sleeping giant. I don't care what anyone says. When we got Tasha Jonas, she was earning 40 grand and should have retired and this and that. When we got Chris Smith, he was going nowhere. When Savannah Marshall was middle of the card and she never headlined a show before. Everyone that, you know, there's always this and reason. I know how good Buatsi is, and I know he's got the right temperament, and I know how consistent and dedicated he is. That's why I'm delighted, because it's so rare that you get an opportunity like this. It's incredible. So happy. Can't wait for some absolute monster nights with him, where he's going to put it all on the line and show us how good he is. And that guy is very, very tough and wants to fight. And believe me, he loves to fight. There's a difference between fighters that fight for a living. This guy loves to fight. He ended up in a boxing gym because all he was doing, people won't know, is fighting on the streets. He came over to Croydon. That's what he loves to do. And that's all he wants to do. And he wants to get back to it, not be held back, be active. And that's why I'm delighted.
One of the other things that was mentioned by Eddie Hearn was, when asked about Buatsi, was there was matching rights. Now I know you went in for Dalton Smith, but there were matching rights which enabled him to stay with Matchman. So what was the difference between that deal and this particular deal with Joshua Buatsi?
Look, that's a Buatsi Matchroom thing. We put in our offer, as I know plenty of promoters put in their offer. Because I've discussed with those promoters, and you speak to other promoters and you see who's interested. So everyone put in their offer. We're told it wasn't matched. Been told unequivocally it's not been matched. And look, it's not always about matching rights. It's about relationships. At the end of the day, a boxer can choose and should be able to choose where he wants to fight, and that's how I have always seen it. They've got a short career, and when they've paid their dues and they've done their contractual duties, they can do what they want to do. And for me, no fighter should ever be talked down to and told they're this and told they're that. It's up to them, whether, you know. And that's one thing I'm slightly upset with. But we warned Josh. We said, you know, you're going to have a PR machine coming at you to tell everyone how ungrateful you are, how greedy you might be, or how you don't want to fight anyone. There's always something. Everyone's had to take it. all of the fighters that have come across so far have been subject to it, and they can't talk out. They don't have that size of platform, but they also don't. They contractually sometimes they can't talk and things like that. So he knew what he was getting into. He's the most respectful, genuine, honest boxer that I've ever come into contact with, and he knew what was going to come. I think he feels like the shackles are off, and now he gets to speak, and you can listen to him talk. And I'm just, as I say, I want to stay out of all that nonsense. It is nonsense. We've got a special talent in Joshua Buatsi as British boxing. We get to see him now in the biggest fights, and that's what I'm excited about.
Just moving away, in the comms you mentioned about announcing your schedule. Another show you've announced is another trip away, which is in Poland. How's this come about with Babic main event for world title?
Look, last year we had to set a lot of foundation, very hard to do what you want to do before you can put things in place. We spend a lot of the time building our relationship with other promoters and working out how things can work and to grow the sport of boxing. So many times we're in this sort of cocoon in UK or in France where we only see what we see on our networks, and I think this is a great way, one, of making more fight nights, one of making fight nights work better because there's two costs coming together on the same time. So make the bigger fights when they come around. We want those sort of relationships. It's great for our fighters. I want our fighters to be uncomfortable. I loved Lauren Price in a third fight having to go and fight on a Parisian show. I love Dan Aziz winning the European title against a Frenchman. It stands them in great stead for when they're in the world title fights. This is a big card. Babic, Matchroom have done an unbelievable job with. Does huge numbers. Is an absolute character. We want characters. So to have him fighting for his world title against another unbeaten guy, that's going to be a war. Martin Bacoli against an unbeaten Igor, I won't try and pronounce his surname, the Hulk, the Ukrainian, where he's fighting almost as a home fight, another unbeaten fight, and then Jamie TKB and Caroline Dubois, who Jamie, by the way, has impressed me massively. Watch out for him because he's in the gyms, and a lot of the heavyweights have their eye on him, and really delighted to get that over the line. And there's going to be many more to come. It means we can put on more fight nights, more opportunities for our fighters, build better relationships with the promoters, grow the sport, and hopefully it pays dividends for when our fighters are in the big fights, and we can just get them done really, really smoothly, quickly, and excited for it.
Babic, is that a kind of a one-off fight you're doing with him, or is that a long-term ambition with him as well?
Well, we have a very close relationship with KO Promotions in Poland, and we've worked with them a few times and are continuing to do. And so when they won the purse bid, Babic has always been someone that Sky have said, oh, he does such great numbers, you won't believe, try and find a way. And so obviously delighted that they won the purse bid, and we were talking about a show for a while, and this presented the perfect opportunity. So when they won that, it was like, bang, you've got your Polish guy, we've got the popular guy in the UK, let's put on a big card in Poland. They've sold it out already. It's going to be an absolute monster night, and Paris went really well for us. Some learnings, some things we can do better. I'm not sure about the studio thing. I think we can do better in terms of how we present it on screen, but it's difficult. Excited to go, and as I say, it will be the first of many.
Bilham Smith was on Sky. He talked about a potential date. He mentioned the stadium. He mentioned potentially the end of May. Is there anything else you can give us on that?
Yes. So we were going to announce a few more shows today, but in the end we wanted this to be about Buatsi. It's a big deal for us, and we didn't want it to get lost. Chris Smith had a massive stadium fight at the end of May. What a journey that's been. I genuinely believe we can sell that place out, which is crazy because they'd never had boxing in Bournemouth up until last summer. Excited to announce that the cruiserweight division, never mind the light heavyweight division, this year is going to be, we've got all the big fights, and I'm excited to announce them. Chris Smith, at Bournemouth Stadium at the end of May.
We're also expecting Eubank Jr. and Smith to the rematch. Is that going to come this week?
I think, we'll announce it when that rematch is done.
When does that land?
There's a rematch clause. That's what we'll announce. I think we'll announce that next week in terms of date and things like that. It's obviously a big fight to put together, a monster fight, and we've got another one in June, early June, that we're about to announce as well. So 3 or 4 more shows to announce in the next few days. But today is about Buatsi. and that's what the focus is.
Just quickly moving on away from this, I know we spoke in Paris about Fury Usyk. It looks like that's done. It looks like they've signed, and a press conference is due probably next week. So good to see for the sake of boxing, both men get in the ring and put it all on the line.
Yeah, love it. Can't wait. And I was just hoping as a fan, like as we all were, please get done. Just when you get it's with boxing when it doesn't, and everyone is just going to pile in on the sport and say it's a waste of time and it's useless. And look at the UFC and look at this. So just delighted it looks like it's going to get done, because it didn't look good when we were in Paris last week. I think we were both thinking, shit, not again. But if it gets done, fantastic, because the whole heavyweight division is waiting. I've only got one guy up there with Martin Bacoli, and we're like, what's going on? We're number 2 in the WBA. If this doesn't happen, let's get it moving. Let's get fights moving in that heavyweight division. There's so many big ones. It shouldn't take 12 months to make a fight. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but that's all I want to see.
Kell Brook did an interview yesterday, Boxing King Media, and he talked about how he kind of has his mojo back.
Yeah.
He went out to Spain to train for a little bit, and he said, I'm willing to come out of retirement to fight Conor Benn.
Listen, Kell Brook is the man, in my opinion. He was my favourite fighter, and yeah, of course we could say that he should retire after the Khan fight, which was an unbelievable night for him, and one that he was sort of craving his whole career. And I really think if he hadn't had that fight, the troubles he's going through would be even worse. That was a cherry on top for his career. Whatever Kell does, I'll support it. Great, incredible guy, and whatever he does, I'll support it, and hopefully we see him back, whoever that's against.
Okay, Ben, thank you for a little bit of time. Anything else you'd like to add before we end?
No, just March 25th, Lawrence Okoli against David Lai. David Lai, as I say, he is so tough. I mean, speak to the cruiserweights that have been in there with him. Speak to Brandon Glanton, who's got one of the most ferocious knockout powers in the cruiserweight division. Joseph Parker says, Ben, you don't realise how tough this is. When Lawrence Okoli has not been in the ring for a year, has changed trainer, this is not the fight that we would have chosen. This is a mandatory defence of his world title that he needs to keep. And it's a big night in Manchester. Mikey Gomez Jr., one of my first friends in boxing, 6 years ago, he was in and out, drinking, this, that. One way in, I had to go and pick him up on a small horse show, find where he was in town. He'd been drinking and bring him to the weigh-in, crazy stuff. He's now 28 years old. He's got his shit together. He's going to fight in an English title fight. He's very talented. He's an absolute character. And it's Michael Gomez's son at the arena where we all saw him on Sky Sports. That's special. Callum Simpson, who I believe is the sleeping giant in the super middleweight division. He will be on that card. Fraser Clark against Riddell Booker, who's coming off a big win. Similar to Carlos Takam, you cannot sleep on the old guys who know what they're doing, and it will be interesting to see, for me, where Fraser's at. I think it's a big test, and Carris is in a local war in Manchester as well. Yeah, I'm expecting a big night. Do come down. It's local talent. It's new faces. It's Callum Simpsons. It's Mikey Gomez Jr.'s, who people won't have seen before, but they're characters, and I think they can go very far. So yeah, big night on the 25th of March.
Ben, we look forward to seeing you in Manchester next week, and yeah, roll on with this journey with Joshua Buatsi. Ben Shalom for IFL TV. Thank you very much.
Refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,